Welcome to Keys to the Future, the podcast where we explore the stories, insights, and the ideas that inspire the next generation of STEM professionals. I'm your host, Gabby Coe. What if innovation isn't just about logic and speed, but also curiosity, intuition, and empathy? In this episode, we explore those questions with my guest. Joining us today is Fabienne Jacquet, a scientist, innovator, and author of Venus Genius, the female prescription for innovation. Through her work, she challenges traditional masculine dominated models of innovation and shows how rebalancing them with feminine strengths like empathy, intuition, and collaboration can lead to more meaningful and inclusive breakthroughs. Fabienne is the founder and CEO of Innoveb, where she helps organizations unlock innovation by tapping into the feminine side of their business. She holds a PhD in organic chemistry from l'École nationale supérieure de chimie in Toulouse, France. Welcome to Keys to the Future, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you so much for having me on a subject I have a lot of passion for.
I can't wait to get started. So let's start with your story. You've had a successful career leading innovation in the corporate world before writing Venus Genius, your recently published book. What first sparked your curiosity to question how we traditionally define innovation?
Innovation is like a black box for a lot of people, and people think that innovation is just for people, big companies with a lot of money, a lot of resources, and so on. I challenge first the fact that innovation, and there is a very simple definition of it, which says that innovation is something new that creates value. And you can put a lot of things behind the things. It can be products, we think of that. It can be a process. It can be a business model like Uber or Airbnb, things like that. And to me, the most important word is value. And value is not only money. Value is very emotional. As we know, a lot of products we use every day is because we connect emotionally to them and not really because of all their features that, yeah, we enjoy. But what makes the real difference is the emotion. So starting with that, I was like, we focus really on the features. We really focus on all the aspects of the bundle, of the product, of the proposition. And then at the end, we say, let's inject some emotion with advertising. It doesn't work like that. So my point is that if we want innovation that really resonates emotionally with consumers, that whether we buy and enjoy, we need to create it with emotion to start with. Like an artist. When we listen to a song, why are we moved? Because the person who wrote the song had that emotion here and translated that into the song. And this is why we really feel it. I say in my book, this is one of my husband's pieces of art here. And what he created, say, oh, AI can do that. Yeah, AI can do something that will be beautiful. But never, ever, AI will be able to transform this art into this piece of emotion that people connect to. We connect to art. It's not because, oh yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, fine, a lot of things are beautiful. But why? Because we feel something, because the artist put that onto the canvas. Same thing with innovation. So in the process of innovation, we need a process. I don't say we don't need one. There is a process, and it's also, when I say masculine, it's not men versus women. Let's be very clear. It's masculine energy and feminine energy. And masculine energy is more about organization, focus, concentration, numbers, steps, and so on, which is good, and we need that. However, and especially at the beginning of innovation, what we call the front end of innovation, we need to have more creativity and more connection to the needs of the consumers with, as you mentioned, some qualities, some traits that are more typically feminine, like empathy, inclusivity, gratitude, collaboration, and so on. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, there is something to be done. We can keep the entire process. We can have the second part of innovation where this masculine energy of execution and so on is needed. However, let's spend more time in the front end with all these beautiful feminine traits to make sure that when we arrive in the middle of the process at the prototype level, this really resonates with consumers, is sustainable. Because when I talk about empathy, it's also empathy for the consumers, but it's also empathy for Mother Nature. So if we create something and say, oh, this will hurt the planet, now it's time to try to correct that. Instead of that, why don't we create something from the very beginning that takes into account the effect on the environment?
Like, thinking, start with this end in mind. And I find it interesting that you said start with the feminine connection first for the innovation. Would you say that feminine and masculine, you can do those together as you innovate?
Yes, absolutely. You need that because when you brainstorm, you need to really let it go. You need to follow your intuition. But at one point, when you have different options, you have to decide. You have also to use some analytical skills and some masculine traits. So I think it's all needed. The point is this is needed at different times and different degrees. So I would say
Yes.
at the beginning is more the feminine, and at the end, where really it's really like the sales and so on, and really the execution steps, it's more masculine. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And so, how do you define Venus genius, and how is that different from the way we usually think about genius or innovation?
Venus Genius is rebalancing this innovation process towards, as we just saw, the more feminine part, spending more time in that. And also, it's not only in the process, it's a mindset. So you have to be curious. You have to, innovation is not, okay, you know what, you go innovate tomorrow. No, it doesn't, it doesn't work like that. So people have to be in a safe environment, and to be in a safe environment when you can bring your whole self, all your creativity. Sometimes I have people in my team telling me, oh, I'm very organized here. At home, I'm creative. I say, no, 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 please, please be creative here too.
Right.
We need that. And this is why I say in innovation, we need to have the whole self. We're all a mix of masculine and feminine traits to a certain degree. We're all this happy mix. We want that as a whole. We want the person with all their qualities and all their experience bring a different point of view to the table, because this is thanks to all these different experiences that a product will be really appealing to the consumers.
Right. And I also find that interesting that you mentioned safe space for people to be themselves and really bring their whole selves into the problem space so that they can speak freely, if you will, and bring their ideas without feeling limited by other factors.
Yeah, this is very important because, and in the nurturing, in my chemical formula for innovation, I have this nurturing, okay? And the nurturing is extremely important for what you just said about ideas, because when ideas were born, they're very fragile. It's so easy to dismiss an idea, oh, this is stupid. How many stupid ideas came up, and ended up being beautiful products and the products we use every day and so on. So it's so easy to kill something with judgment, to your point. And people feel, okay, if I say that, it's stupid. I will feel ridiculous and so on. And don't want to say it. But they say, no, please, please, because you say something and might be crazy. But then somebody else will say, yeah, but there is something there. I have a twist on it, and building and building and building. Actually, in my workshop, finishing this workshop, I have an exercise where somebody has to come up with a totally crazy idea, and then the team has to build that into something which is more realistic and more tangible. And it works. It works.
Right.
So the safe space is really to make sure that whatever idea you have, you are free to express it. And, might end up being something good, or we might dismiss it. But,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you have to be safe again to express, and also be safe to fail and say, okay, it was stupid, too bad, and that nobody holds it against you. So yes, the safe space is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me more about your chemical formula.
Yeah, I'm a chemist, and when you're a chemist, once a chemist, you're always a chemist. I wanted to explain they put it together in a proposal, and it's difficult with words. And suddenly, I guess, you know what? I'm a chemist, and it's a formula. It's a formula to bring something to completion. So you have ingredients, and you mix that, and you get something. We want innovation. So I started with the end product. The end product is a heart and the dollar sign. So you want innovation that resonates emotionally with the consumers and brings money to the bottom line. So to go there, what you need? I'm a scientist, I did a lot of research about what are the skills needed in innovation. And then I screened that through what is called feminine. And I ended up with these 6 traits. You have empathy, intuition, inclusivity, nurturing, gratitude. These are the ingredients that you mix. And I have my little formula with, of course, this take.
Mhm.
You have the arrow and it gives you but you have to catalyze that because it can take time. How do you catalyze it? You catalyze it with collaboration. Because
Mhm.
when you put the empathy for the consumer, the nurturing that protects ideas, the inclusivity where you have all the ideas around the table, the gratitude for the other functions and what they bring to the table, you collaborate and then you will get this innovation.
I love that because you brought your own skill set to innovate how you presented the idea to a group or to a potential customer. I really love that.
Thank you.
You want the customer to walk away with something that makes them think about your product later on, right?
This is an excellent point. So in the book, I have a chapter for each of one where I explain why it is important for innovation, where it is in the process of innovation, and then I have a small practice section that I develop in the workshop.
I love that. I wish I could attend one of your workshops.
Oh yeah, no, but so this is my baby, by the way.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. So, can you share an example where all this formula led to a meaningful breakthrough?
We were working on a shower gel and it had to be relaxing. And so we started to have a brainstorming. So, what can we have create as a relaxing shower? And somebody started to talk about candles and vanilla scent and blah, 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 blah. This is how we relax. And so I was like, all right. And we brainstorm and brainstorm. And stupid idea, someone said, oh, you know what? When I want to relax at the end of the day, I have my glass of wine. Everybody laughed. I said, no, 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 no. Let's build on that. A glass
Mhm.
of why is it? Oh, okay. We ended up with a beautiful bundle that was in Tuscany with all the things about Tuscany and so not the alcohol, obviously, but you see all the ambiance of the wine and so on and the relaxing. See, so you can really from a stupid idea when everybody said, "Oh no, 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 this is not a stupid idea. Let's build on that, collaborate," and we did, and then all the functions were all together and we started to think about what should be the texture, what should be. So the formula was a little bit burgundy, which was very rich, like a little bit wine, and we had these little beads that were like the little seeds and so on. So everybody was excited about the project. Then when we presented to the consumers, yes, it resonated. The consumer said, well, I'm fed up with the candles and the thing and the sound relaxing and the vanilla scent. This is something I want to have, relaxing in this beautiful Tuscany landscape.
That is amazing because I think, if somebody just has an idea, like you said earlier, and you communicate it to others, right? Others may have an additional thing that they're thinking about or another twist about it. And so that's what creates that collaboration and communicating all of those
Exactly.
different aspects and the diversity that all of us bring to the table, contribute to that. How would we use a specific product? Based on different things that we do on a daily basis, or all of those things I think contribute to the innovation. And I think that's why having diverse teams, right,
Yes.
is so important and key to have that innovation. So have you worked with a lot of diverse teams?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I did.
Hmm.
Because I worked in international companies. My
Hmm.
entire career. So yes, it was Europe, it was Asia, it was like, I was in the corporate office.
Hmm.
So we were really technology first and then innovation in marketing. And yes, we were all working together. We had all these cross-functional meetings, cross-cultural meetings, and so on. So yes, this is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have also to point because I think that the emotions, the basic emotions, are global. However, the way
Hmm.
you express them are different depending on the
Right.
culture. So this is why you have the base idea, but then you have to translate that into products that resonate with the local consumers while having a global platform, which is a challenge.
Right. And it could be the same product, right? But you just have
I
to
love
like
the
translate it into their
communication.
cultural. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so in Venus Genius, you introduced the idea, like we've been talking about, that ambition needs both masculine and feminine energies to thrive. How does this dual energy, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how does this dual energy approach change how teams brainstorm or make the decisions?
I think that it fosters more enthusiasm and because of the collaboration, because at the end, people own the process, they own the product. Because when you start working all together with the inclusivity, with nurturing, not saying, oh, this is a stupid idea, but respecting the others. And then the empathy for the consumers. When you start with that, you own the project, you defend it, and it's more of a team effort to bring the product rather than somebody has an idea and a team is executing.
Right. I love that you said empathy, collaboration, and respect within the team itself so that you can have the space to innovate and use all of those traits as well as you innovate.
Because in a regular classical system, you have the research R&D, they have a great formula, then they talk to marketing, and marketing creates a concept to fit the formula, and so you have a lot of steps, and it creates a little bit silos. So what I really tried to do is, and worked with this, is to bring all the functions together from the very beginning. And this
Yes.
is where the gratitude, because it's funny, some feminine traits where, yeah, this gratitude, some people tell me gratitude in innovation. But this was so important because I remember when we were creating prototypes all together as a team, and the marketer was saying, wow, to the scientist, I didn't realize that creating a sample was so complicated. Next time I will think twice before asking you for the sample for yesterday. And on the other hand, the researcher, the scientist, when we were creating concepts with words, saying, "Wow, I thought you were just jotting a concept like that up and words on paper. This is very sophisticated." So people, when you see what the other people contribute to the project, you respect more their work, and it creates a better ambiance at work.
Yes. Absolutely. I think owning even a piece of a product that you're responsible for, but having that ownership of the overall vision and the overall how you're going to get there, I think that's what makes the teams work so much better.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I laugh because I remember when we had created the bundle, and then a new marketing person came and wanted to change something. And we were in the meeting, and the scientist, I remember she was very shy, but she said, no, 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 no. I was in the room where the consumers said that. So you don't want to change that? And I was like, yes. As a leader of the project, I didn't say anything, but she was defending, saying, no, 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 you cannot change that.
Right. Yeah. And I think as leaders, right, share the vision of the products or the vision of where the team is going and bringing them into the fold so that they get the ideas and innovate together, collaborate to the solution. Then you start getting that ownership. And like you said, you start defending in different ways, right? Why we shouldn't change or should change a certain aspect of the product. So I find that very, very exciting actually, because the energy in the room automatically changes when all of those factors are going on.
This is exactly what I said, the energy and yeah, and these feminine traits of more understanding energy. I don't say soft because I don't like soft, it's not soft, it's different. But the mix of both, because sometimes you have to say, I remember one day I was at a workshop, we had a lot of men there. It was a very technology driven company. And at one point I had an exercise and so on, and I had like 100 people, different tables, and I said, okay, let's move and so on. Nobody listened. Okay, so I went the middle of the room. There was a table, and bah, I put up the and everybody said, I can use my masculine energy when I want. So everybody knows that I make the point. I say, you know
Right.
what? You can use whatever traits you have and we have in us, but you need to have a balance. You cannot have all the feminine because it will be all creativity. Oh, it's nice and fuzzy, but nothing will happen. And you cannot just jump from an idea to execution. You need to spend time to make sure it corresponds to what the consumers want, to their real needs. Again, feminine and masculine. So masculine is more the execution we do, and the feminine is more into the empathy, the listening, the
Mhm.
collaboration, and so on. So at one point, you have to decide, and it takes more of this masculine energy. So you can use your intuition, you can use all that, but again, it's a mix. It's all mixed. So if you have only the feminine or only the masculine, it's not balanced.
So, what are some practical ways that organizations can start shifting towards for a more balanced innovation cultures?
I think it's definitely a mindset.
Mm.
Just by j'allais dire in French. I was about to say apply the formula. Think about creating teams, diverse teams with all um, these characteristics, rather than saying, okay, I have a very good business person here. Let's put this business person in innovation. They may not have the right skills to innovate. Okay,
Mm.
you have to make sure you have the right people and the right environment, and you create again a safe environment when people know they can go crazy on ideas and maybe something will happen or not. So it's really this from only processes, and we have a process and we do that and we apply and we go and go more towards the human factor and the yes, the emotional aspect and balancing it.
So, what about leaders? So, we talked about the organizations, but what about leaders? As leaders, what are some of the things that we can do within our teams immediately to innovate more holistically?
I think it's the same answer. It's like, no, just apply that. Just make sure that the people you have in your team are at their full potential and bring their unique voice to the table and that this voice is heard.
Yes.
Because then you will have diversity. You have a lot of different ideas. You have the richness of the innovation. So as leaders, we want to make sure we create also this safe environment where when somebody says something, you say, oh yeah, no, no, it's no, no, this will not. We did that, we tried, it doesn't work. No, we don't want that attitude. So it's really a question of being open-minded to create a diverse team who collaborates and everybody is rewarded for their contribution.
Absolutely. I mean, so, and it really kind of, I don't want to say boils down to, but inclusivity, it's a big factor when, you have loud voices in the room and you only have those loud voices in the room. As leaders, we should be saying, how about you, so and so? What is your idea about this? Or I haven't heard from you as we're discussing these different ideas or topics. What are your thoughts? And so that makes people feel more inclusive and willing to share their ideas.
I learned about that because as you can feel, quite extroverted. And I had trouble with introverts at the beginning because, it's, oh yeah, everybody is like contributing in the brainstorming. And I said, the loud voices like mine. And then you have this quiet person in the corner and suddenly they say something. You say, oh my God, this is brilliant. And I learned that through my experience to listen more to them and to give them a way to express themselves. So in the workshops, for example, I always have solo exercises where people write things first and think first. Then you have to share with between two people and then as a bigger group. Because otherwise the introverts are totally like left out of the process. So it's very important to, and I learned that. I really learned that. It was not obvious to me because everybody feel like expressing themselves, but the best ideas come very often from people who say, I talk before I think. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
nice to think before talking.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that because you think, introverts, they are listening. they're in listening mode, right? So that's like deep listening is so important as well, right? And that's, a soft skill, right? We talked earlier about, naming those skills soft. They're not soft at all, because they can be very powerful. Deep listening, and maybe they're just in listening mode, and by prompting them for their ideas, something sparks, and they may be too shy, maybe in some cases, to speak up in a big group. I mean, I've
I'm
had people that, we've had a meeting and discussed a lot of things, and the louder voices in the room were most prominent. But then you have a meeting separately with just one on one, and they said, oh, well, I thought we could do this X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, speak up in the meetings. But I think as leaders, we should have the mindset of being inclusive and bringing those people into the fold and prompting them if they seem to be too quiet, because they're maybe in deep listening mode and have some ideas of their own.
And I learned to also listen to body language. This is so important because, again, introverts may not verbalize, but you can see when they are ready to say something and so on. So I learned also to observe more of that
Right.
and try to guess when the right time is to bring them to say something.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I think those are really good ideas. So if someone was listening today, well, who wants to bring more of the Venus genius energy to their work, where should they start? What are some ideas?
I think that the first step is really to understand what the current process is. What do you innovate today in your team and so on? How do you innovate, and is it successful, yes or no? And then what do we miss? And then go back and try to see at each step of the innovation process. You have the stage gate, it's very, very organized, but at each step, did we miss something or not? What can we bring? Is it perhaps empathy to listen to Mother Nature? Maybe we didn't think about the environment, enough. Did we bring enough diversity? This is an international global product. We just talked to the US team. Perhaps it's not the right thing. So analyze really where they are today in a very critical way and say, how can we improve it? Again, based on especially in the front end at the beginning, with this empathy, this intuition. Okay, and another thing, analysis paralysis.
Yes.
How many times? Oh my God, we have so many, and everybody's like, intuition. And I say intuition is not a crystal ball. Intuition is actually our brains working in the background when we're quiet.
Mm,
When we say that we have an idea in the shower, it's or looking at the sky, in the when we're in the grass and looking at the sky in the clouds. This is because intuition is just the way our brain, when we don't disturb them with a lot of other stimuli, they connect all the information we have in our brain in a different way. And this is why diversity is important. So it connects all this information. And the haha moment is just that. It's just the connection of all this information
mm.
that the brain does. Same thing when we sleep. I had my best ideas when I said, Vive came to me. It was like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I was like, Eve. And my husband's like, what the heck is that? This is the name of a new company, Innovation and Eve, feminine. He was like, oh my God. But it came because I did 6 months of work. What can I do later? And just, analyze everything I had absorbed during all these years. And it came because of that. It didn't come like, whoop, crystal ball. No, it's not that. So intuition is extremely important, and it's not recognized because you think, oh, it's a fuzzy feminine thing, intuition. No, it's not. It's very powerful. So you have again to balance that with more, let's say, numbered criteria. Yes, you can put a rate. I remember each time we try to rate, you have different options. Let's rate each one, blah blah blah. You end up in the middle. This is not satisfactory. The best
Right.
thing is really when you say, yeah, this really has legs. I know it because of my experience.
Yeah, and I think creating each of those factors, right, may limit some people because they may think, oh, well, it's only 20% or, 30%. I won't share my idea because we've already covered something, right? It may limit some people if you do that, I think.
Yeah. And so if you follow your intuition, the point is that then you go to the prototype. And the thing is not from me, okay? But it's fail quick and fail cheap. But is that?
Hmm.
So you have an idea, prototype, you go, you try it, it doesn't work. You put
Next.
the
Yeah.
try, you go to the next. Instead of spending hours trying to rate to find the perfect, option, the perfect idea, which will never be there.
Right.
Take the imperfect idea and try it a little bit, experiment
Yeah.
with it, and come back.
Absolutely. I mean, get to that maybe 75, 80% solution and then iterate to make it better.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I'm getting to a little bit of the, rapid fire questions for you as we close our conversation. So kind of fill in the blank. Curiosity for you is blank.
Letting ourselves be surprised.
Excellent. Like by finding out different things and just jumping into
Be
whatever.
open, be
Yeah.
surprised.
Open minded. I like that. How about innovation fails when we ignore blank?
The real needs of the consumers.
Yes. Yeah, they're the ultimate goal to satisfy that emotion that they may have an encounter with our products. And one last one here, a habit that helps you stay curious is what?
Venture. For example, I never take the same way to go from one place to the other. I always take another one to explore. Just, again, discover. I think it's discovering. Curiosity is something being attracted by the unknown and not being afraid of exposing yourself. Yeah, it's like expatriation. You jump into the unknown. You don't know where you're going, and it's out of curiosity and discovery and so on. And yeah, it's just like go and be
Have an open
surprised.
mind.
Yeah, with an open mind, exactly. Be surprised and just enjoy.
Absolutely. So, where can listeners find you and the wonderful work that you're doing?
My website is quite easy. It's www.fabiennejacquet.com, my name.com. And I just actually relaunched it. So I have all the information about my books, about the workshops, and so I'm very excited about it.
Thank you, Fabienne, for such a refreshing and thought provoking conversation. Your
Good.
work is a reminder that innovation isn't just about speed or scale, it's about balance, humanity, and purpose. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to express my passion.
To our listeners, I hope you were inspired by today's conversation. Check out Venus Genius and learn how you can activate your own creative power to innovate with meaning. Thanks for listening to Keys to the Future. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep unlocking your future. Thanks to my guest, Fabienne Jacquet. Thanks to Roger Co for quality reviews. And thanks to Joe always.